Sorry to interrupt this video for this awesome giveaway. All right, guys. So we're giving away some Vortex binos. You look like you could use some free binos. Do you like free binos? Do you like free hunting gear? Well, you're in the right place. We're gonna give away a lot of it. We're gonna start with a pair of Vortex binos. So in order to win these Vortex binos, it's not that hard, guys. All you gotta do is like this video, subscribe to the channel, and you can even comment below for extra entries. So we're gonna be giving away a pair of Vortex binos for now, but don't worry, if you don't win the Vortex binos, we're gonna keep giving stuff away. We're looking to ramp this channel up fast. So the faster we get more subscribers, the faster we start giving away stuff. Do you want a new bow? We're gonna be giving away a new bow. There's a whole list of things that we're gonna be giving away. This is just the first. So if you get entered now, you're gonna be entered for all future giveaways. So like I said, guys, we're gonna give away a pair of Vortex binos very soon. We only got a handful of subscribers to go until we get to our goal. When we get there, we're gonna announce it. We'll probably do another video announcing who the winner is and give away some free stuff. So if you guys want a pair of Vortex binos, maybe a bow in the future, or a lot of other cool gear, hit the subscribe button, make sure you're liking these videos, and also comment for extra entries. So simple as that. If you like free stuff, do it. All right, guys, it is December, at least for me, at least for when we're shooting this video. Whether you watch this in December or not, I do not know, but you can take this information and you can do something with it, put it in your memory bank. December sheds, shed antlers. It's a pretty early time for deer to be dropping their sheds or their antlers, but with that being said, this does mean something. So today we're gonna get into the topic of December sheds and what they mean. I'm gonna take it back a little bit. We're in Kentucky right now and we're hunting a deer that I call SoCo. SoCo is a 6.5-year-old deer, public land deer, and way back there on some public, and I have some history with this deer. So last year I actually hunted SoCo and shot at SoCo. Poor shot, missed completely. Had a camera guy come down a couple weeks later in December, literally the same time of year, and SoCo came in again for like the third or fourth time. So I had SoCo pretty much, on a string. And he came in this last time and he had dropped his sheds, dropped his antlers. So it became sheds, I guess you could say. So what does this mean? A lot of people would just think, all right, well, that buck's, he's in the rearview mirror. I got to find something else with a little bit of time in the season that I do have. What I did is I kind of analyzed the situation. Why did SoCo drop his sheds? So there's a combination of reasons. The first one that I think could have played a role is the stress that I was putting on him. So these deer, they have a lot of stress, obviously living in the elements. It's weather dependent, things like that. There's a lot of different variables as to why they could lose their antlers in December, and it's not ever really a great sign, if I'd be honest with you. And a lot of times it relates back to their health. Could be illness, anything like that. Could be CWD, could be EHD, could be a lot of different things playing a factor. So let's go back to that stress. So like I said, SoCo was a buck that lived miles back in the public. I don't think he saw a lot of pressure. He lived on a piece of public where there was no gun pressure, but when I was in there hot and heavy on him. So after going in there and hunting him, obviously educating him a little bit, he had crossed my scent path at some point in time, guaranteed. And then going in there and having encounters with him, shooting at him blowing at me, that creates stress, okay? And this deer wasn't in egg country. He didn't have a predominant food source that he could go to every single night, replenish his body after the rut, after he put on tons and tons of miles, and sometimes they can lose up to 30% of their body weight. SoCo didn't have a predominant food source back there other than natural browse. So now me going in there and stressing this deer out more likely could have resulted in one of the reasons that SoCo shed so early and ultimately pretty much ended the hunt for him last year. Another reason that these bucks will sometimes shed is injury. So we talked on illness a little bit, and like I said, it could be EHD depending where you are in the country, CWD. I know that's a hot topic for a lot of people, whether I guess you even believe in CWD or not. But it could play a role, and any illness. But let's hop over to injury now. So injury is another thing that can obviously affect the deer's health. At the end of the day, all these things are going to relate back to the deer's health late in the season. Can they bounce back from the rut? Do they have a food source? Are they put, under stress? Are they injured from the rut? Let's face it, these bucks are going into battle. basically. Throughout November, they're fighting for does, they're asserting their dominance, they're running all over the place. They're gonna get injured. They could get shot at from prior gun seasons. They could get wounded by bow hunters. When these things take place, ultimately the illness, the injury, testosterone drops, okay? These bucks, and it happens naturally anyway, and that's why these bucks do shed antlers. It ultimately is a result of a testosterone drop, but it can be accelerated through injury or illness. So let's say a buck gets gored or, like I said, injured through a gun season or archery season. These bucks, once again, will likely be more likely to drop their sheds in December. Once again, not a great start. If these bucks are dropping their sheds or their antlers in December, their health is diminished. Hopefully they're holding later into the winter. So the other point that I wanted to bring up is that I already kind of mentioned is the lack of food. Going back to SoCo, this buck didn't have a destination food source, not that I was aware of. He was a big woods buck, no agriculture around. He's probably relying a lot on natural browse, acorns, locust pods, anything he can kind of get his hands on or his hooves on late season. And if bucks don't have that, they're more likely to be dropping their sheds a little bit earlier. It's as simple as this. If they don't have a predominant food source to replenish themselves after the long season, the stress, the illness, the injury, at the end of the day, they're likely or more likely to drop those sheds a little bit earlier. So now let's say you're kind of in farm country, you got good food plots, you got leftover food, you got soybeans, you had corn, you had already planned for this and you're the private land guy, or just like I said, you're in egg country and you do have good food and you still have bucks dropping their antlers. Now we can resort to some of those other things. What's happening? Was it injury? Was it illness? Was it the stress? It could be any one of those things. You can probably rule out the food, obviously, if you have a predominant food source, a destination food source, where a lot of these deer are basically feeding to. At the end of the day, you know, we talk about food. That leads me into my next segment, which is just poor habitat. What do I mean by that? So we're kind of talking about food here, and that's obviously, food is key late season. That's what's going to help these deer get healthy again, get back to the right body weight, in which will allow them to survive through the winter. And if you have poor habitat, those chances once again diminish. So now if we add all those prior, occurrences or possibilities of injury, illness, stress, and the food, and now we add poor habitat in there, it's not looking good for your deer if they're dropping early and you have all these things that are not going for you, I guess you could say. So poor habitat, what do I mean by that? Well, one, it could be that lack of that food source. Two, it could just be poor habitat from a timber stand improvement. So let's say that your property has a lot of mature timber. When you have a lot of mature timber, generally there's a really tall canopy. And with that tall canopy, the sunlight is not allowed to hit the forest floor or doesn't hit the forest floor during the growing season. Yes, the sun will hit the forest floor, once leaves drop and things like that. But at that point, the growing season is done. So you're not gonna get any new reproduction, or you're not gonna get any new browse at that point. The growing season's over. So what that means is that there's not a ton of food at the deer's level. So, and there's not a ton of natural browse or food at the deer's level. Once again, we're lacking a food source. We're lacking cover, which could also ultimately allow for a lot more stress. Like I said, it's just going to wear and tear on these deer. So if you have poor habitat, if you have wide open timber, if you don't put all the puzzle pieces together when it comes to being a deer manager, a property owner, or just maybe the public land you're hunting doesn't have the habitat that you need, these are all factors that can definitely affect your deer's health. And at the end of the day, it's going to affect whether they drop their antlers in December. So the good news is it's not the end all be all, okay? When these deer do drop in December, obviously SoCo, the buck we were talking about, he did survive. And as a matter of fact, I went back there to the day that I shot him, put a camera up and got a picture of him within 12 hours, 2 miles back on some public land. So just because your deer do drop in December, it doesn't mean that they're going to die. It doesn't mean that they're not gonna make it through the winter. But what it does mean is that, let's say you do have a harsh winter, let's say there's a lot of social stress, there's a lot of numbers in the herd. Bucks, especially mature bucks, don't love being around a bunch of deer unless it's the rut. So all these other factors definitely play a part or play a role. But it's not the end all be all. So like I said, this 5.5-year-old, now 6.5-year-old deer did survive, but obviously he wasn't put in a great scenario by dropping his sheds early. Now when I see him dropping in January, February, I'm not nearly as bothered. I'm thinking they're a lot more healthy if they can hold them a little bit longer, and that's a direct correlation to health, is what it comes down to. So it doesn't mean that you're gonna lose them, but it doesn't mean that you're necessarily gonna keep them. I'd say that they're definitely more likely to not make it through a winter if you do get those bad conditions. So at the end of the day, these are a lot of the variables that cause deer to lose their antlers in December. Is it the end all be all? No, but if there's something that you can do about it, whether it's supplemental feed later in your seasons, and understanding how to supplemental feed so that you don't actually hurt the deer, which is also a possibility through rumen acidosis, which is a topic for another day, but it's something you can at least look up in Google. If there's something you can do, whether it's going in and cutting down trees, what is that going to do for you? It's going to drop browse at the deer's level. So some of those tall trees, those tall canopy trees that you have, you go in there and you drop some trees. Now they can eat the buds on the trees. They can naturally browse on stuff. That's the least you could do. So at the end of the day, if you are seeing a lot of antler drop in your area in December, there are things you can do. And if you're the public land guy, it's kind of a toss-up. You kind of got to go and find some new areas. But at the end of the day, these are some of the reasons that these deer do drop antlers in December, and those are some of the things that you can do about it to hopefully fight that battle.